The Night Watch. In the summer of 2018, I took a job as a counselor at Camp Whispering Pines, tucked away in the dense forests of northern Vermont. This wasn't one of those polished summer retreats with heated pools and craft cabins stocked with premium supplies. No, this was all splintery wooden bunks, cold water showers, and the constant symphony of insects that never quite let you sleep soundly. The camp sat nestled in a valley, surrounded by mountains that seemed to watch us, trapping us in their shadow by mid-afternoon each day. I hadn't grown up attending camps like this, but my roommate Tyler had spent his childhood summers there. He'd painted it as the perfect summer job. Decent pay for simple work, meals included, and memories that'll last a lifetime. What Tyler conveniently omitted were the rumors. Like how the camp had been abruptly abandoned in 1997 after 3 children vanished during an overnight hike, or that it had quietly reopened 5 years later with different signage, new ownership, and significantly reduced enrollment numbers. I didn't bother investigating these stories. I was 22, drowning in student loans, and desperate for employment that would cover my fall semester textbooks. My responsibilities were straightforward: supervise 8 boys between ages 10 to 12, ensure their safety, and fill their days with enriching outdoor experiences. No electronics allowed, not even for counselors, just the woods, the lake, and endless hours to fill with increasingly desperate attempts at entertainment. Initially, it was mundane, exhausting but unremarkable, until the night of the summer solstice, June 21st. I remember because Ellis, the smallest of my campers, wouldn't stop complaining that the longest day of the year meant he was getting the shortest night of sleep ever. Poor kid had no idea how right he was. That night, I jolted awake to a rhythmic tapping, not from within our cabin, from underneath it. I assumed it was a branch knocking against the foundation, or perhaps some animal seeking shelter. I grabbed my flashlight, one of those heavy metal ones that could double as a weapon, and slipped outside to investigate. The tapping stopped the moment my feet touched the dirt. When I returned, Liam's bed was empty. The window above his bunk was wide open, the screen removed and propped against the wall. I burst outside, panic rising in my throat like bile. I shouted his name, my voice swallowed by the vastness of the woods. The other boys stirred, but I ordered them to stay put as I plunged into the tree line, my flashlight beam dancing wildly across gnarled trunks and twisted undergrowth. I found Liam standing in a small clearing beside the dried-up creek bed, barefoot, motionless. His pajama top was inside out, though I was certain it hadn't been when I'd done bed checks. And there was something else, maybe 30 yards behind him. Something massive. It was hunched over what appeared to be a deer carcass, though I couldn't be certain. Its body seemed to absorb the darkness, making it difficult to determine where the night ended and the creature began. Long, emaciated limbs. A torso that seemed too narrow. And the sounds, wet, guttural feeding noises punctuated by something like human whimpering. Then it straightened its spine, 9 feet at least, possibly taller. I froze. Liam hadn't moved an inch. The thing lifted what must have been its head, though it seemed wrong, somehow misshapen, and I swear I heard it sniffing the air. Then it turned in our direction with a sickening cracking sound, like bones rearranging. I snatched Liam's wrist and ran, dragging him behind me. His skin felt ice cold despite the summer night. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The sound of branches snapping behind us was motivation enough. We made it back to the cabin. I counted heads over and over until sunrise, wide awake and trembling. At the staff meeting the next morning, Camp Director Harmon dismissed my report, called it a stress reaction, and reminded me that imagination runs wild out here. He suggested I'd seen a black bear and nothing more, said Liam was obviously sleepwalking, and I was to place a bell on our cabin door to prevent future incidents. But here's what still makes my hands shake when I think about it. Liam changed after that night. His laughter became hollow, his appetite insatiable. I once caught him devouring raw hamburger meat from the kitchen's walk-in refrigerator at 3 a.m. And his eyes, they reflected light differently, like an animal's. During the next solstice, the winter one that fell during Christmas break, Liam's parents reported him missing from their suburban home. They found him 3 days later in the woods behind their subdivision. unconscious, severely hypothermic, with dirt packed under fingernails that had grown impossibly thick and curved. The camp didn't reopen the following summer. The official statement cited structural damage from winter storms. Tyler and I made a pact to never discuss what happened. He moved to California. I changed my major. We both tried to forget. Last week, I received a plain envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid photograph of my old cabin at Camp Whispering Pines, clearly taken recently, written on the back in childish handwriting. "It misses you. I miss you. We saved your bunk." The most disturbing part? I recognized the handwriting. It belonged to Liam, but Liam DeWitt has been missing for nearly 5 years now. If you receive a job offer from a summer camp in Vermont that doesn't appear on official tourism websites, with a name that sounds vaguely familiar but not quite right, please do yourself a favor. Decline, because sometimes what watches from the woods doesn't just watch. Sometimes it waits. And sometimes it sends back the children it takes. Changed. Beneath the floorboards. It's been 48 hours and 13 minutes since I crawled out from beneath the floorboards. Not that I'm keeping track. Actually, that's a lie. Every heartbeat is both a celebration and a torment. Freedom tastes like copper pennies on my tongue. 5 years. That's how long Eliza kept me hidden away in her attic crawl space. The doctors say my muscles have atrophied and my vitamin D levels are dangerously low. Time meant nothing in that cramped darkness, marked only by the creaking of her footsteps overhead and the distant chiming of her grandfather clock. That clock. That infernal clock. Sometimes I'd count the chimes until I reached hundreds, feeling my mind unravel with each resonant toll. I barely remember who I was before. The man called Marcus Fletcher has become a stranger to me. In those early months, I clung desperately to memories. My apartment overlooking the harbor, my job at the university library, my sister's Sunday phone calls. I'd whisper these truths to myself when Eliza was out of the house. "You belong to the house now," she would hiss whenever she caught me reciting these fragments of my former life. Her silver letter opener would glint in the dim light as she traced it along my collarbone. "The house has chosen you." The neurologist believes I may have permanent damage from prolonged sensory deprivation. My medical file shows malnutrition, pressure sores that healed without treatment, and peculiar nervous system responses. Parts of my memory simply refuse to function. Now, the detectives ask questions I struggle to answer. Where was I taken? Did I see other victims? How did I escape? The only clear memory I have from before my captivity is walking home from an evening lecture, feeling the autumn leaves crunching beneath my shoes. I remember thinking I should have worn a heavier jacket as the wind picked up. Then a sickly sweet smell overwhelmed me. A car door slammed. Darkness engulfed me. When I regained consciousness, I was in that crawl space. Raw wooden beams inches from my face. Dust coating my lungs with each shallow breath. A thin blanket between my body and the rough floorboards. A plastic bucket for waste that she'd empty every few days. No windows, no light except for when she'd open the hatch to lower food or water. For weeks, I screamed until my throat was raw. I pounded on the floor until my hands bruised and bled. I prayed deliriously to deities I'd never believed in. Nothing changed. Eliza never told me why she chose me. I rarely saw her clearly. The attic hatch would open, and I'd catch glimpses. A flash of red hair, pale hands, the hem of a floral dress. But her face remained shadowed, indistinct. Even when she finally revealed herself fully, I couldn't seem to focus on her features. They shifted and blurred like a photograph underwater. The worst part was the whispering. Late at night, she'd sit above my prison and speak through the floorboards. Sometimes reciting what sounded like poetry in languages I didn't understand. Sometimes describing in excruciating detail what had happened to the others before me. Sometimes just breathing, for hours, her presence more suffocating than the stale air. Once, after I tried to escape by clawing through the insulation toward what I thought was an exterior wall, she denied me water for days. My lips cracked and bled. When she finally lowered a glass of water, I sobbed with relief. I thanked her. I promised never to try again. I meant it. The most unsettling moments were when she would bring her friends over. I could hear them walking around the house, laughing, glasses clinking. Normal sounds. while I lay silently above them, wondering if anyone would hear if I screamed. She told me her friends knew about me, that they approved, that I was part of something ancient and necessary. The house must be fed, they would chant sometimes, their voices merging into one droning sound that vibrated through the wooden beams around me. During winters, the cold was unbearable. I could see my breath in the dim light. My fingers turned blue at the tips. Sometimes she'd slide hot water bottles through the hatch, but only after I'd recited the strange prayers she taught me. I learned to ignore the cold. I learned to slow my heartbeat to conserve energy. I learned to detach from my body when necessary. I stopped begging around the third year. I stopped speaking altogether shortly after. My voice became a foreign thing, something that belonged to a person who no longer existed. The silence was my refuge, the only space that was truly mine. The most confusing times were when she seemed almost kind, when she'd read aloud to me for hours, when she'd pass up small gifts, a smooth stone, a feather, once even a small potted plant that quickly died in the darkness. The psychologist calls it conditioning. I call it calculated torture. Then, 2 days ago, the hatch opened at an unusual hour. Her movements were hurried, frantic. She pulled me out roughly, my limbs screaming in pain after being confined for so long. And her face? I could finally see it clearly. Or rather, what should have been her face. It wasn't human, not entirely. Her features seemed to constantly rearrange, like watching clay being molded by invisible hands. One moment almost beautiful, the next horrifically distorted. "The house is hungry for new blood," she said, injecting something cold into my neck. As consciousness faded, I heard the front door open. A man's voice, confused but polite. A delivery person, perhaps. "Perfect timing," she whispered, more to herself than to me. "You've earned your freedom. Your replacement has arrived." I woke up in a hospital bed with no identification. The staff call me John. The police are baffled by my condition and my story. I can't describe where I was held. The house keeps shifting in my memory, its architecture impossible, rooms that couldn't exist. But I remember her voice. The way it would change pitch mid-sentence, as if multiple people were speaking through one mouth. The musical lilt when she was pleased. The guttural growl when angered. It's strange how certain details remain crystal clear, while others dissolve like sugar in water. The trauma specialist said my mind protected itself by compartmentalizing. "Your brain sacrificed certain memories to prevent complete psychological collapse," she explained. I still feel phantom sensations, the weight of the attic pressing down, the texture of rough wood against my skin, the taste of dust that never fully left my mouth. Last night, as I drifted between sleep and wakefulness in my hospital room, I heard a news report from the hallway. A delivery driver had disappeared after his last stop. His truck was found idling outside a Victorian house on Elm Street. I should tell the detectives everything. I should help them find him. I should warn them about the house. But I can't. I physically can't. Because as Eliza was preparing to release me, after I'd heard the doorbell ring and a man's cheerful greeting, she pressed her ever-changing face close to mine, her breath smelling of cinnamon and soil. "Listen carefully," she whispered, her fingers digging into my shoulders. "You're going to leave here. You will not speak of us. If anyone starts looking for this house, the house will know. It always knows. And it will find you again, no matter where you hide." She showed me something then, a small wooden box filled with what looked like human teeth. "These belong to those who broke their silence," she said simply. "The house collects its debts." But here's what truly keeps me silent. What I haven't told anyone until writing this. Before leaving me on that hospital bench, she brushed her lips against my ear and said, "We'll be watching you. The house has marked you. Sometimes you'll feel us in your walls. Sometimes you'll hear us in your pipes. And someday, when you least expect it, your floorboards will creak, and you'll know we've come to bring you home." And this morning, when the nurse brought my breakfast, I found a small envelope beneath my tray. Inside was a single yellowed tooth and a note on antique stationery. "The new one asks about you. He's sleeping where you slept, breathing your air. The house misses you. It speaks your name at night. Tick-tock." There was also a small thumb drive. When I borrowed a laptop from the hospital's patient resource center, it contained a single audio file. Just 10 seconds of a man's voice, confused, then panicked. "Hello? Is anyone there? I think I'm stuck somewhere. Please, can anybody hear me?" In the background, unmistakably, was the sound of that grandfather clock chiming. I've been free for 48 hours and 27 minutes, but I know the house is waiting, and sooner or later, the floorboards will creak. The last task. There's a gig app that pays disturbingly well. Stay away from it at all costs. You won't find the app in any conventional stores. There's no download link through normal channels. The only way to access it is by scanning the QR referral code from an existing user. This exclusivity makes it feel like joining some elite club. If someone offers to share their code with you, consider that friendship over. Trust me when I say this isn't a club worth membership. Whatever you do, do not download it. I was nursing a cheap beer at Riley's pub when my friend Alex convinced me to download the app. We're both drowning in student debt, so our usual night out consisted of drinking discount beer at home. But tonight, Alex insisted on celebrating, claiming he was treating, which was enough to get me off my couch. He played it up, refusing to reveal what we were celebrating until we were several beers in. Tired of waiting, I guessed it was a job offer, which made Alex flash a mischievous grin. "It's way better than that," he said. "It's called Quick Quest." I rolled my eyes hard. We'd both cycled through every gig app imaginable. When I'd grow tired of rideshare passengers vomiting in my back seat, I'd deliver food until the greasy smell made me sick. Then I'd scramble for freelance gigs until the cycle inevitably restarted. Most days, escaping this trap seemed impossible. I told Alex I didn't need another soul-crushing app in my life. "Forget those other apps," Alex said, leaning forward. "This is the easiest money I've ever made." His enthusiasm piqued my interest. Alex never gets excited about anything, so seeing him this animated was unusual. Plus, part of me still believed in the fantasy of easy money that didn't involve winning the lottery. After minimal persuasion, I scanned his code and clicked the link. This took me to a bare-bones website with nothing but a download button. Within seconds, the app appeared on my phone. The interface was minimal, even simpler than Venmo. Just a few tabs, one for my referral QR code, one for connecting my bank account, and one displaying my current balance of $0. In the center of the otherwise empty screen were the words, "You have no new tasks." Before I could accuse Alex of downloading malware onto my phone, he interrupted. "I know what you're thinking, but just wait for a task." I was skeptical too after Vanessa referred me. The mention of Vanessa eased my concerns slightly. She was Alex's occasional hookup. I'd only met her a handful of times, but she seemed too straightforward to get involved in anything illegitimate, aside from her film school degree that left her with more debt than employable skills. "When you say the easiest money you've ever made," I trailed off. "I've already made $900 since downloading it yesterday, not counting the referral fee you just got me." "I hope they paid you well to drag me into your pyramid scheme," I joked. "They did." Alex showed me his phone screen where $1,200 had just been deposited into his account. "Christ, is that real?" "The money transfers, if that's what you're asking. If this turns out to be a scam, at least I know your friendship's price tag." "Oh, they definitely overpaid," he laughed, waving to the bartender for another round. We moved on to discussing upcoming movies, and I'd almost forgotten about the app when my phone vibrated 20 minutes later with my first task. I read it twice, disturbed by the message on my screen. "Dude, this didn't make me feel less sketched out," I said. "Is this supposed to be funny? What kind of twisted person created this?" Alex read my task and snorted. "Yeah, that's a weird one, but $150 is $150. I looked at my phone again. Sure enough, the app was offering $150 for this disgusting task. Below that, a timer counted down, already at 4:32. "No way I'm doing that for any amount." "Then wait for something more palatable," Alex said. Or what? Do something revolting that someone else has to clean up? You know how many drunks do worse things in bar bathrooms every weekend? At least you'd get paid." "It's repulsive. People are repulsive all the time." "Have you gotten tasks like this?" My first one was knocking over a display at Walmart. And you actually did it? For 75 bucks? Of course I did. No big deal. I apologized and walked away. How are you not completely creeped out? How does it even know where we are, or if you've completed the task? Same way every app does, by tracking you, using location data to monitor your movements. I mean, how does Instagram know to show me ads for protein powder every time I hang out with you at the gym? You're such a jerk. Alex shrugged. Who's even funding this? Every other gig app connects workers with clients and takes a percentage. There's no benefit here except to people completing tasks. My money's on some tech billionaire. Think about it. They're bored with luxury. They've got more money than they could spend in 10 lifetimes. What better way to use it than watching people debase themselves for cash? I'm not interested in being someone's sick social experiment. I checked my phone again. The timer showed less than 2 minutes remaining. I searched for a decline button, but found none. How do I refuse the task? I asked. No idea. I haven't turned one down yet. With no option to decline, I decided to test the system. If someone wanted to mess with me, I'd mess right back. I went to the bathroom but did nothing. I just waited a minute, washed my hands, and returned to the bar. I checked my phone as the timer expired. A frowning emoji appeared on screen before the app went dark. Alex's phone buzzed seconds later. He checked it and laughed. What? New task? What is it? Alex smirked before showing me his screen. I barely had time to read "punch your friend" before his fist connected with my jaw. The blow knocked me off balance. I jumped up, barely avoiding falling. What the actual fuck? Everyone was staring. I couldn't tell if my face was burning from the punch or the humiliation. Alex raised his hands apologetically. Sorry man, but $300 was too good to pass up. The bartender approached with an irritated expression. That's enough from you two, he said firmly. We're good, Alex replied. Just close us out. The bartender shook his head and went to prepare our check. Alex's phone buzzed again as the bartender returned. Alex checked it, grimacing slightly. Then he took a large gulp of beer and sprayed it directly into the bartender's face. The bartender turned crimson as security grabbed Alex by his collar, dragging him toward the exit. Sorry, it was just a joke, Alex called. Hope it was worth it because you're banned for life. Sign the tab and tip him well, Alex yelled back as security shoved him outside. I picked up the pen to sign when my phone buzzed on the counter. I told myself not to check it, but curiosity won. The task read, every instinct screamed that something was wrong. This went beyond simple location tracking. I scanned the bar, certain I'd find someone watching us, orchestrating this sick game. But everyone appeared to be enjoying a normal night out, occasionally glancing at me like I was a sideshow attraction. I looked back at my phone. $350 to write those cruel words instead of leaving a tip. My face flushed with shame as I wrote them, but I needed to know if this was real or if Alex was pranking me. I turned the receipt face down and hurried out before anyone could see what I'd written. By the time I stepped outside, the app alerted me that $350 had been added to my balance. Among all the disturbing aspects of the app, I just encountered the most alarming red flag. That punch from Alex wasn't random. It was a warning. Disobedience had consequences. Alex wanted to continue celebrating our good fortune, but once the adrenaline subsided, I felt both drained and on edge. So I went home. The whole situation felt fundamentally wrong, but I needed proof it wasn't elaborate trickery. I transferred the money to my bank account, and sure enough, it appeared. Despite the easy money, my stomach knotted with unease. I struggled to articulate why. Partly it was the sensation of being watched, the unanswered questions about who created the app and their motivation. But I think something about it also felt manipulative, like I was a puppet in some twisted game I couldn't comprehend. I can't deny I felt an immediate rush alongside whatever guilt came from stiffing the bartender, like the app had tapped into some hidden impulse. Did I want to do that? Had the app nudged me towards some darkness lurking inside? I accepted some rideshare requests hoping for distraction, but even those reminded me of my trap, having leased a car specifically for gig driving, now needing to maintain a certain number of rides monthly to make payments. Before midnight, I found myself cleaning vomit from my car's back seat after driving a drunk college student home. Screw this, I thought. I opened Quick Quest and waited. No tasks appeared. I refreshed repeatedly, but nothing came through. I assumed they lacked the resources to monitor constantly, but in retrospect, I believe they were conditioning me, making me crave tasks so I'd feel grateful when they eventually paid attention. It wasn't until the next day that a new task appeared. I won't detail everything I accepted over the following days to chip away at my debt, except to say they seemed relatively mundane, if increasingly antisocial. Initially, they were basic. Things like spitting gum where people would step in it, knocking ice cream from a child's hand, ringing doorbells at midnight before running away. I realize now they were gradually escalating, though I barely noticed then. 3 days after refusing that first bathroom task, I was stealing packages from porches and calling strangers to leave voicemails about fictional family tragedies. I read this psychology book once about how enemy soldiers turned patriotic American POWs against their country. No true patriot would immediately denounce their homeland, but if you could get them to admit America wasn't perfect, they'd slide down a slippery slope. Something in the human mind makes us double down on past admissions. Once they acknowledged America's flaws, they'd gradually detail them more extensively. Eventually, these soldiers had Americans publicly rejecting their own values entirely, never noticing their incremental concessions until it was too late. Like those soldiers, I failed to recognize how far I'd strayed from my moral boundaries after Alex introduced me to the app. My moment of clarity arrived about a week after accepting my first task. I'd abandoned my other gig apps since the vomit incident. I earned significantly more completing Quick Quest tasks with seemingly less effort. But still clinging to some illusion of respectability, I maintained a part-time data entry job. The mind-numbing work paid slightly above minimum wage, but returning to it felt especially painful now. Until this point, I'd kept the app open in the background for task assignments. But midway through the morning, my phone lit up despite being on focus mode with the app closed. I'd been wishing for something to break the monotony, and here it was. Desire fulfilled. My pulse quickened. I knew it was wrong and likely illegal. However, I'd been told the company didn't handle particularly sensitive information. Most data I accessed was mundane user analytics sold to advertisers. I rationalized the task away, though suspecting it would end my employment there. I'd decided to do it before even noticing the unprecedented offer of $3,000, by far the most for any task yet. Within 30 seconds, the money was transferring to my account. The adrenaline rush I'd grown to crave hit hard. Head buzzing, I forced myself to focus until lunch. Upon returning, I wasn't surprised to learn my supervisor wanted to see me. She was surprisingly gentle about the situation. She didn't immediately terminate me, though well within her rights. Instead, she offered me a chance to explain. Confusion crossed her face when I declined, and she politely dismissed me. Her approach aligned with what I'd been told, that we didn't handle particularly sensitive information. But as I left, I glimpsed something in her expression that suggested otherwise. Terror. She looked absolutely petrified. The next day, I understood why when news broke that the company was shutting down after a massive data breach. The guilt I felt over potentially costing numerous people their jobs quickly transformed into fear of repercussions. I wondered if I'd be scapegoated in the company's damage control efforts. As if reading my thoughts, my phone notified me of a $7,000 employee loyalty bonus. The familiar mixture of elation at the windfall and chills from involvement in something so sinister washed over me, helping me suppress any lingering remorse. I fell into my routine of rationalization. Where previously I'd told myself no one was truly harmed by my actions, this time I focused on the idea that clearly the company had been engaged in something questionable if a seemingly innocuous folder could destroy them. To hell with them for creating the situation, I thought. It wasn't my first angry response that week. Anger had become my default reaction whenever guilt or shame threatened to surface after completing a task. Like many reading this, I did everything right. I attended college, studied something practical. But jobs in my field existed primarily in major cities, far from family circumstances requiring me to stay local. Even if relocation had been possible, entry-level salaries wouldn't cover living expenses before factoring in student loans. Regardless of my choices, life resembled an inescapable hamster wheel. Everywhere, I heard complaints about the difficulty of finding reliable, dedicated workers. What did they expect when they filled our heads with dreams of comfortable office jobs and home ownership, burdened us with debt, then offered only one path forward, staring at screens doing meaningless work for $15 hourly, if lucky, for 10-12 hours daily? We were sold lies. The American dream died long ago, yet older generations dispense advice based on their experiences of steady paychecks and affordable mortgages. Meanwhile, every time we open social media, wealthy influencers claim following passion leads to unprecedented freedom and success. Both perspectives come from those who've already succeeded, each convinced that hard work alone determined their outcomes. Most of us juggle multiple gigs, trapped in the hustle economy, clinging to some illusion of control. Sure, we have crippling student debt that we'll likely never repay without government intervention, and purchasing even the smallest property remains fantasy. But at least we choose when to clock in and out, when to quit. We drive strangers or deliver meals, gamble savings on cryptocurrencies, or curate social media personas, hoping fortune might somehow elevate us from endless grinding. I'm not proud of how readily I accepted these tasks. It genuinely felt like my first escape route from the rat race. So what if I behaved terribly? Billionaires denied their workers bathroom breaks, and look where they ended up. Just when I thought I'd perfected the art of justifying my actions, I received the task that finally changed everything. The day before downloading the app, I'd arranged a weekend date with a woman from a dating app. I'd been anxious when committing to it, worried we'd be limited to the cheapest margaritas I could afford, plus complimentary chips and salsa. Claiming I'd eaten a late lunch had become my standard dating strategy, but this night would be different, because finally, I could afford somewhere nice. I confirmed our plans and suggested an upscale venue. We met at a restaurant local foodies adore and connected immediately. This was genuinely the best date of my life. We bonded over commonalities, laughed while teasing each other about differences, and kept expensive tapas and cocktails flowing for 2 hours before disaster struck. When my date excused herself to the restroom, my phone vibrated. As she walked away, I checked my latest assignment. I scanned the restaurant and spotted a woman in a blue dress sitting alone nearby. She appeared lost in thought, absently tracing her wine glass's rim. I looked at my phone again, confused. Get what over with? I didn't ponder long enough. Greed had consumed me. I happily ignored all details about this woman that should have deterred me. It seemed inconsequential. But the payment alone should have raised alarms. If I'd received $7,000 for compromising a company, how harmless could a task worth $12,000 possibly be? I approached her table, speaking before she even registered my presence. "Hurry up and get it over with," I said flatly. Shock registered on her face as my words sank in, but she remained silent. I said nothing more, returning to my seat. "What was that about?" my date asked, having witnessed the exchange upon returning. "Nothing important," I said, staring expectantly at my phone. "Don't worry about it." I smiled as my phone confirmed a $12,000 deposit. What should we order next? But my date wasn't looking at me. She stared horrified as the woman in blue left in tears. We couldn't see the street, but we clearly heard screeching tires and screams from patrons near windows who watched the woman in blue walk deliberately into oncoming traffic. My date never looked at me again, except when giving her police statement. By the time officers finished questioning me about my interaction with the woman in blue and determined I wasn't legally culpable, my date had vanished. That was my breaking point. This time, I couldn't rationalize away the guilt and shame. This app was evil. Undeniably, irrefutably evil. Whether operated by humans or something more sinister remained unclear, but its malevolent nature was undeniable. I went home and deleted the app. I sent Alex multiple texts demanding explanations. I called repeatedly, reaching only voicemail each time. I wished my roommates weren't traveling. I desperately needed to talk to someone about what had happened. Instead, I smoked and drank myself into oblivion while awaiting Alex's response, finally collapsing around 4 a.m. I woke at 9 a.m. to frantic pounding on my door. It was Alex, eyes bloodshot with dark half-moons carved beneath them. Before I could confront him, he pushed inside and began closing all blinds. "I screwed up bad," he said. "I really screwed up. I should never have gotten you involved." "No kidding. I deleted the app." "You can't delete it." "What?" "It keeps returning. You need to destroy your phone. And even then, I'm not certain." I checked my phone, and indeed, the app was prominently displayed. I deleted it again and watched it vanish. But when I swiped to the next screen, it had already reappeared. "What the hell is this thing, Alex?" He didn't answer, his expression catatonic. That's when I noticed blood spattering his shirt. "What happened? Where's that blood from?" He collapsed onto the floor, hugging his knees and rocking back and forth. "I screwed up. I really screwed up. They're dead. They're dead. They're dead." He repeated this mantra endlessly, making my skin crawl. "Who's dead?" "All of them." "Because I refused." "Refused what?" "I couldn't do it. I tried, but I couldn't." "Whatever happened, we'll go to police and sort it out." "We'll explain about the app," I said. "We can't. They'll blame me." "For what? Just tell me what happened." "You don't understand," he snapped. "We can't. They're listening. They know everything we do." "Okay," I said, trying to calm him. "All right. Why don't you shower and clean up? Then you can explain, and we'll figure this out together." Shortly after getting him into the shower, someone knocked. When I peeked out the window, a delivery truck was driving away. I cracked the door and found a small package on my doorstep. I shook it, hearing something thud inside. I locked the door and carried the box to my kitchen. "Is someone here?" Alex called from the shower. "Just a delivery. Everything's fine." I opened the box and stared in horror. Inside lay a handgun. My phone buzzed with a quick quest alert. My hand trembled as I read it. Nausea overwhelmed me. I considered calling emergency services, but realized Alex might be right. What could I possibly tell them? There's an evil app ordering me to murder my friend? Good luck with that. I decided to call Vanessa. She was the only other person I knew involved with this nightmare. Maybe she'd have information or advice. I started to ask Alex if he remembered her number when I recalled he'd texted us both before a party months ago. I searched my messages and found the conversation. Vanessa answered immediately. "Hello? Vanessa? It's Alex's friend, Nathan." I lowered my voice and retreated to my bedroom. "Something happened. I don't even know where to start." "Where's Alex?" "He's here. Showering. I think they want me to..." "Not over the phone. I'm nearby. I'll be right over." I hung up and noticed the shower had stopped. I returned to the living room and found Alex, still damp, but dressed in clothes I'd left for him. His back was turned, but I saw the empty box beside him on the floor. "What's the task?" he asked quietly. "Alex, I wasn't going to..." He turned, aiming the gun at me. "I'm serious. I wasn't. I would never..." "Just put down the gun so we can talk." "Shut up and let me think." With his free hand, he clutched his head, his face contorting as he suppressed a sob. He took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, man." He tightened his grip, finger moving to the trigger. A car door slammed outside, distracting him momentarily. He hesitated, turning to look. I lunged forward, tackling him. The gun skidded across the floor. He thrashed beneath me as I pinned him down. "Stop!" I gasped. "I'm not trying to hurt you." The fight drained from him, and he stopped struggling. "I'm going to stand up now," I told him. "Will you stay calm?" He nodded. I stood and moved to the window, peering through blinds to see Vanessa approaching my front steps. "It's just Vanessa," I told him. "The three of us will figure this out together, okay?" Alex remained silent but sat up. I unlocked the door and had it halfway open when a sickening realization struck. Vanessa had never visited my home, and I hadn't given her my address. I was already slamming the door when she raised her own gun and fired. Relief washed over me as I thought she'd missed. I dropped to the floor, reached up, and engaged the deadbolt. I turned around, pressing my back against the wall. From this angle, I could see she hadn't missed at all. Alex's lifeless eyes stared from the carpet, blood pooling around the hole in his forehead. Steady, methodical thumping came from outside, Vanessa kicking at the door. I scrambled for the gun where it had slid when I tackled Alex. I aimed at the door and shouted, "Please don't make me shoot you, Vanessa. Just leave." I can't, she called back, voice breaking. They have my brother. I gave them, I told him. She couldn't finish. Bullets peppered the door around the lock. She kicked again, the frame splintering. I pulled the trigger, hoping a warning shot might scare her off. Click. Nothing. I pulled again. Click. Nothing. They'd sent me an unloaded gun. A twisted test I'd apparently failed. I ran to my garage and jumped in my car. I had no idea where Vanessa was, but I wasn't waiting to find out. I pressed the garage door button. It hummed open slowly. Vanessa's boots appeared outside. I didn't hesitate. I started the engine and shifted into drive. I floored the accelerator, bursting through the door and catching Vanessa off guard. Her upper body slammed against my hood even as she fired at me through the windshield. Unable to see with garage door fragments blocking my view, I swerved across the lawn and crashed into my mailbox, pinning Vanessa's body against it. Tears burned my eyes as I climbed from the car and crawled toward her. Neighbors emerged from homes. If gunshots had disturbed them, they'd hidden behind closed doors. Now that the threat seemed neutralized, they came out to witness the gruesome aftermath. I leaned over Vanessa's dying body. "I'm sorry," I sobbed. "I didn't want this." Her mouth moved uselessly as she struggled to speak. I leaned closer to hear. "My brother. They said they'd let him quit if I... Please help him." "Who are they?" I begged. But Vanessa was gone. I noticed blood dripping onto the grass near her arm. Looking down, I realized I'd caught a bullet in my chest. I heard sirens as consciousness faded beside her body. I awoke in a hospital room with a police officer sitting nearby. I tried to sit up. "Stay down," she said. "You were seriously injured, but you'll recover. Your parents have been notified and are en route." "I didn't... It wasn't..." I had no idea where to begin. "You don't need to say anything. You're not in trouble. Witness statements made it clear this was self-defense. The deceased individuals were connected to a major drug operation, and you were caught in their dispute. But you're fortunate. This could have ended much worse." "That's not what happened," I insisted. She studied me for a long moment. "You're disoriented. Rest now and we can speak later if you still want to." The officer stood and left. I noticed a phone on the table between my bed and her chair. "Hey, you forgot your phone," I called. She turned back, shaking her head as she displayed her own device. "Mine's right here. I believe that's yours." The phone buzzed, sending instant chills through me. A single notification illuminated the